Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. So today I want to walk you through my workflow of how I manage a large volume of notes using the Supernote Manta and all the features and capabilities that exist within that device. So if that's of interest to you, stick around. We're going to dig in right now. All right, so let's jump into what my workflow is. So I did some pre-work on this just so that you wouldn't have to watch me write everything out. That would be tedious to look at. So what I did was I always start off with a table of contents. This is not my specific workflow. Like I said, this is a training workflow that I set up, but it mirrors what I do exactly. So I set up a table of contents and I group things together, like I've got my team, my supervisor's team, support teams, and then meetings. Under each one of those, I've got, for example, the names of the people that are on my team, all bogus. Supervisors team, also bogus names. Support teams, these are departments within the company that I might meet with on a regular basis. And then here are recurring meetings that I have, usually like on a weekly basis or sometimes more often, sometimes less often. So what I do is I'll take you into the structure of my file system. So I have folders that reflect all four of those items in my table of contents. So my team, support teams, supervisor teams, and meetings. I have folders that mirror all that stuff. So if you go into my team, you'll also notice that I have subfolders that match the people that were listed in my table of contents as being on my team. And then I have similar folder structures for the rest of the items in the table of contents. So I have folders for each one of those. And then beyond that, I take it one step level or one level lower in that, for example, in my team, I might have some notes here for Rick. I divide it up by year just so that I can keep everything organized and I don't have folders that are just overflowing with file names. So let me take you into what my workflow is and how I build out the workflow. So go into this and go into my table of contents. First of all, I like to make sure that my table of contents is hyperlinked so that there's nothing, I don't hyperlink the headers. I only hyperlink what's underneath the headers. For example, I did some sample notes on Rick Jorvair. So what I'll do is I'll have I'll link to a note that is for Rick Jorvair. So I'll come over and lasso. And I use the tool instead of the two-finger method only because I find it to be more reliable. Maybe it's the way that I use the two fingers. But I'm going to go over to Files. I'm going to go into My Team. I've got Rick Jorvair, 2025. And I just have one note for Rick Jorvair. So every meeting that I have for Rick is going to continue on in that same notebook for 2025. So I'm going to go ahead and link to this. And now you'll see that I've got a hyperlink there. So I'll go through and do this with every single person and every single meeting that I've got a folder set up for. Not only do I have folders set up for the people, I've also got folders set up for the meetings. So now I can click on Rick Jorvair. It takes me to his note. And then I've got several pages of notes here that I just wrote some bogus stuff in, whatever. So since I'm doing one long note or one continuous note for each one of my people or meetings that I take notes on, I want to make headers, and then I go one extra step besides just a header with the date on it. I put some kind of a note with the date that kind of summarizes what that meeting was about or what these notes are about. For example, if you read the notes here, Rick is going to be taking on a new project in collaboration with the finance department, and I have some questions that I want Rick to answer for me. So I put the date, Friday, March 20th, 2025, and then kind of the topic of the meeting was the new finance project. So I want to make this a header because, as you can imagine, with weekly meetings with Rick or anybody else, I'm going to have, at least 52 pages in here, if not more, for each one of the meetings that we go through. So it would be handy to have that extra little tidbit of information. And you can also use keywords. I can make that a keyword as well, but I'm going to put it in my header. It's just the way that I get organized. So I'm going to lasso this. I'm going to make it a header by clicking on the header button here. I always like to use the dark text on the light background. So out of all the options there, I use this third one. And then I'm going to go to my subsequent meetings that I have. You know, I've got one here that the meeting, my note here was its follow-up from last week. I'm going to make that a header as well. I'm going to make it the same format. And then I've got a third note in here. We're going to engage Lily Johnson in the finance project. My handwriting, I usually try to be more aesthetically pleasing than that, but I didn't do that here. So now, if I need to navigate through my notes, I can come up here and look at my headings and see if I need to go back to that follow-up meeting or the new finance project meeting. I can find that really quickly. Also, you can use keywords. I didn't do it in this particular instance, but you certainly could use keywords to be able to find things as well. It works either way. Another thing that I do is that, for example, here I've got that I need to reach out to Lily Johnson to also engage in this project. So this is a to-do item. So there's a couple of different ways that I use to-dos. You can lasso it and make it a to-do by clicking here and then making it a new task. This will go into your tasks. When I go here, you'll see that it's reach out to Lily Johnson to engage. I can click add. I can give it a due date, but I'm not going to do that. And then I can swipe down. I'm left-handed, so my menu's on this side. I can swipe down and I can look at to-dos, and then I've got in my inbox, reach out to Lily Johnson to engage, and it spelled the last word incorrectly. I don't do that because I don't use the built-in to-do. I use Microsoft To-Do that I've side-loaded, as you can see here, because for my company, we are a Microsoft Office company. All of my to-dos are captured within Microsoft To-Do, so I side-loaded that on my device so that I could have it there as well. So let me go back to this. Go back to Rick Jorver. And so what I do is I like to use the star method, which is another, whoops, you got to have the pen selected. I like to use the star method so that this is tagged. If I wanted to find it in the note, I could certainly go and look for stars and see if I have any outstanding to-dos. My workflow is that when I find the stars and things that are needing to be done, I just take those items and then I put them within Microsoft To Do, and that's what my workflow is. Now, another way that you could do this, if you didn't want to have one large note, what I have done, since I swap between devices a lot, I'm using the Supernote Manta for the majority of the time that I need to take notes, but I also have other devices, a Remarkable Paper Pro and a couple of Boox devices, so I swap between these devices a lot. And when I do that, you know, the headers don't translate over when I export as a PDF file, so I lose that organizational, I guess, level that I get with a Supernote. So what I really do when I'm swapping between devices is I do a note, an individual note per person. I'm going to show you what my actual work table of contents and all looks like. I keep it on my quick access menu. I'll go here. This is my actual table of contents. And what I did was I went into Microsoft Excel and I created a document that had a dark gray background. And I merged some cells together and put a title up here in white print. And then I made some boxes in white and I put some titles up here. Put some blocks where I could do some handwriting. I exported that as a PDF. I put it into the Supernote as a template. And then I did my handwriting and linking from there. But if you'll notice that when I'm just going to go into one of my listings here. When I go into here, I have a long list of notes that are all hyperlinked because I'm doing an individual note per meeting. And that allows me to swap between devices. But I think the better workflow, if you're not swapping between devices, is to use OneNote and just continue to use headers and organize your notes that way. So that's kind of a high-level overview of my workflow in the Supernote Manta. I do take a lot of notes. I'll also say that when I was using the Remarkable Paper Pro as my primary device, I was using a 5,374 page hyperlinked PDF. I found that trying to keep that PDF system synced between all the different devices that I wanted to use was such an onerous task. I decided to abandon that PDF file. If you're going to stay with one device, I highly recommend that hyperlinked PDF file. It's a great way to be organized. I like it better than this method. But once again, like I said, I swap between devices a lot, and it just wasn't conducive to a good workflow as far as that goes. All right, so if you made it this far, hopefully you found something useful in the video. If you have any questions or comments about anything, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you would, I know you hear this a lot on every YouTube video, please like and subscribe, or consider liking and subscribing if you like what you saw. Thanks for stopping by and thanks for watching.